and welcome. You're watching Wion. World is One. I'm Archana Slanki. We start this bulletin with some breaking news coming in. The Supreme Court of India has agreed to hear review petition in the Sabarimala case on 26th of January 2019. That's the latest that we are getting in. The top court of India has agreed to hear 49 review petitions as far as the Sabarimala case is concerned. These hearings will take place in an open court, and that's the latest that we are getting in. Petitioners had challenged the entry of women in this temple, and the top court of India has finally agreed to hear these 49 review petitions on 22nd of January 2019. These review petitions will be heard in an open court. For more on this, I'm joined by Wion's correspondent Jessica Taneja, who's joining us from New Delhi. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. What really happened in the court today?
Well, Archana, it was a sort of hearing by the five-judge bench of the Supreme Court in their chambers. It wasn't an open court hearing, so to say. But what the order specifically says is that it makes it clear there is no stay on the judgment, and that should sort of be the essence of the whole judgment, that yes, while the Supreme Court will hear 49 review petitions on January 22nd, but at the same time there is no stay on the judgment it gave earlier, wherein it allowed menstruating women to enter the Sabarimala temple. So that is here to stay for the moment. But then again, the review petitions will be heard in an open court.
Right. Jessica, do we have any clarity as to was there any mention of the fact that there was a blatant violation of the Supreme Court order, because when the Sabarimala temple was reopened and none of the women of menstruating age were allowed to enter? So did the court, did any mention, any conversation take place of this context as far as the hearing was concerned?
Well, as I mentioned, Archana, this was just the Supreme Court five-judge bench hearing this matter in their chambers. So this was not an open court hearing, so there was no mention of this as far as the order is concerned, because it doesn't seem to have any details around that. But at the same time, let's understand what the review petition would mean for all the devotees and the 19 sort of parties that have challenged this judgment and asked for a review from the court on the basis of the fact that there is an apparent error in the face of the judgment. So that is essentially what the Supreme Court will be looking into when they hear the review petitions in open court. And also, if I may point, Archana, to all our viewers, that it is very, very rare that a Supreme Court agrees to review its judgment. It mostly happens in death penalty cases where it has to have an open court hearing or open court hearing for a review, or in those particular cases where the judgment is. But when you talk about a case like this, which has so many people and their hopes kept up high, but usually cases like this or judgments like these do not get a review in an open court. So that is essentially very, very important, and that sets aside that how important and how of national importance this case is at this point in time. So of course all eyes will be on January 22nd, but at the same time the message is loud and clear in the order that there is no stay. That is what specifically the order mentions. While there will be an open court hearing, but there is no stay on the judgment which was given out by the Supreme Court earlier. That is to stay at this point in time.
Right. Jessica, you're mentioning about these 49 review petitions. Who are these people who have petitioned against the Supreme Court verdict?
Well, all the devotees, Archana, you see the Travancore Descent Board, the various, the Ayyappa devotees, many temple boards and devotees are part of this petition who have asked the court to review this judgment. And interference in their religious practices is something they consider as violation of their fundamental rights as well. So there are a lot of contentions being put forward when it comes to the review petitions filed, and more so it gets clear on January 22nd as to what the petitioners really want to say. What is that apparent error? Because, Archana, for a review, either one has to come up, present a new set of evidence, or there has to be an apparent error which has been ignored in the judgment. So it will be crucial to see as to what that apparent error is, which the petitioners want the court to review in their judgment.
Right. Jessica, when the Supreme Court gave this verdict, it was being hailed as a historic verdict because after a really long time, after decades, this sort of discrimination was being ended by India's Supreme Court. Women were finally allowed to enter. And we also saw that the bench was divided. Indu Malhotra was one of the judges who did not want this to happen. For the benefit of our viewers, could you please recap the judgment for us, because it was historic in a lot of ways. It was controversial, but a lot of people said that it was a brave judgment by the Supreme Court of India.
Absolutely, Archana. It was Justice Indu Malhotra who is the only dissenting voice in that judgment, who had said that religious practices must not be interfered with by the court of law. But the other judges, Justice Chandrachud, Justice Nariman, were of the view that men and women have equal right of worship guaranteed under the Constitution of India. They have equal right to equality, liberty, which is guaranteed to every individual, and women are considered equal. So why, if men and women, I remember the observations which were made during the Constitution bench hearing of the Sabarimala case, where Justice Chandrachud himself had asked the petitioners, and whereas the parties, the Travancore Descent Board, that if men and women can go to work in the same place and feeling as equals, why not allow them to enter the temple as well, whatever biological factor might be at play there. So given the fact that, these are the kind of observations and judgments that have come out from the Supreme Court, where they clearly outrightly said that women have an equal status that of men, and why should women not be allowed? And if you see what has happened, blatant violation of the Supreme Court order and judgment, and no implementation is what we're looking at. Particularly faulty implementation of rule and law in order to be able to ensure that women enter. So far what we've heard is 10 women who tried to enter who were below the age of 50, were not allowed to enter the temple. They were either stopped by devotees who were protesting, and of course there was a lot of chaos around the Sabarimala temple and just to visit the Lord Ayyappa shrine. So we're looking at blatant violation of the Supreme Court's order, which clearly set it out that even though 4 judges and the majority judgment was such that women should be allowed to enter, not because of their gender.
Right. Jessica, please stay on with us. We're joined by Shashi Kumar, Secretary of Mahalingapuram Ayyappan Temple from Chennai. Thank you so much, Shashi Kumar, for speaking to Wion World is One. What is your reaction to this? At the Supreme Court, it's rare. Our correspondent Jessica Taneja was telling us that it's very rare for the Supreme Court to review its own verdict. What is your initial reaction?
Yeah, Swami Sharanam, it's a great relief to crowds of devotees of Swami Ayyappan. It is irrespective of religion, whether it's a Muslim, Christian or Hindu, all the religion people goes to Sabarimala and worship at Sabarimala. It's a great relief to all of us, and I am sure that when the Supreme Court takes up all the 49 review petition on 22nd of January, all the parties, all the stakeholders points will be heard before taking a final decision on this subject. And as your correspondents were saying that, when people can work at, ladies and gents can work in a place, why they can't worship at same place? See, actually you must understand there is no ban for ladies going to Sabarimala. There is only restriction between certain age groups.
Right. But sir, I want to understand that you're saying that there's a ban for certain age group, and the Supreme Court in its judgment said that this kind of discrimination should not take place. What do you have to say about the violence that ensued when the gates of Sabarimala temple were reopened for women? The devotees, the so-called devotees, the protesters, they vandalized media vans. Women journalists were attacked. So do you think this kind of protest especially is a blatant violation of the Supreme Court verdict? And at this time you are supporting the argument that a particular section of women, that age group, is banned in the name of religion. Is it fair?
It is not the vandalization, the actual devotees of Sabarimala, of ladies, has never tried to enter Sabarimala. Who has gone to Sabarimala? If you look at 10-12 names, you will understand the whole result. The results are within you. The answers are within you. It is not the believers who went to Sabarimala, try to go to Sabarimala. So when people doesn't have belief, they try to go to Sabarimala. Naturally, there will be a restriction. There will be resistance.
Right. So you're saying that the women who entered were not authentic believers, as you're saying, but I believe the people who were protesting there, the people who were resorting to violence, I believe, are also not authentic devotees, because I don't think so anyone would do that in the name of religion. But thank you so much, sir, for speaking to Wion World as One. We'll wait for that crucial hearing on 22nd of January when the Supreme Court will hear this review petition, 49 petitions in the Sabarimala case.